No, she wasn't in there. Wait, Port Security is now back to the county?
How much is the number again now?
500?
That might not be,
But that's the number.
that's not the county. That's not the sheriff, that's just the county.
Oh, that's the privatized thing?
Yeah. That's
It's the private
that's
company,
a
right,
privatized.
500? I think they're still negotiating with them. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yes. Good evening. This is the work session for Northfield City Council, October 12th of 2021. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9th of this year. As you may know, in late May, Governor Murphy issued Executive Order 242 related to COVID-19, and which eased restrictions on face coverings in indoor public spaces under certain conditions. The order permits employers to impose stricter requirements regarding face coverings in indoor settings, which, in the best interests of our employees and visitors, the City of Northfield opted to do in May and continues to do today. Based on CDC guidelines, the City of Northfield continues to require face coverings and social distancing in our indoor public spaces, and visitors are made aware of this decision with signs at the entrances to the building. Due to these requirements, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this evening. This meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting live streamed using Zoom conferencing service and in accordance with the Governor's executive orders and the Open Public Meetings Act. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, have been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the public meeting notice has been posted at the entrance to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find the meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as instructions on how members of the public could submit comments in advance of tonight's meeting. For those participating via Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web browser participants will not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the City of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. At this time, one by one, any telephone users will be asked to identify themselves and will be unmuted to permit commentary. For web browser participants, comments or questions may be submitted via the chat function, but will not be acknowledged outside of the designated public comment portion of the meeting. Chat users must also provide his or her name and address for the record in order to be heard. Any written comments submitted in advance would be read aloud and addressed during the public comment portion of the meeting, and for this evening there were none. May I have a flag salute led by Council President Pro Tem Deweese, please?
All right. Salute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Deweese?
Here.
Mrs. Madden?
Here.
Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Rutz, can you hear us in Zoom? Oh, he's muted again.
Yes, here.
Councilman Rutz, can you hear us?
Yes, barely.
Oh, boy, here we go again.
Maybe he's too far away.
Doesn't appear we can hear you, Councilman Rutz. Hang on just a second. I'm going to try and...
What's that?
Anything now, Councilman Rutz? Can you try speaking?
I can barely hear you. No, I'm all the way up.
Not working. No, Paul, I can see that you're talking, but we still can't hear you. Hang on just a second, please.
I can barely hear you. But I can hear you, but just barely.
Okay, it seems to we have the same situation we had before, where people in the chat can hear each other, but we can't hear them.
Okay. Should I try my phone?
Councilman Nuts, can you type into the chat if you don't mind? Are you using a cell phone, or are you on perhaps a PC or an iPad? Are you using a web browser right now?
I'm on a computer and
I
using
can't hear you.
the,
If you can talk it, if you type it into the chat.
I'm sorry? Should I try the phone?
I see only one of the mics has a green light.
All right, he's muted again. I didn't just mute him, it just muted itself. Councilman Nuts, whatever device you're using, is your volume up all the way?
It is up all the way. Can you hear me?
Again, I can see you talking, I can see the words on the screen, but we can't hear you. Are you able to type into the chat?
Let's try.
I'm guessing that's a no. Oh, yes, he can type. So Councilman Nuts, whatever device you're using, is the volume turned up? Okay. He says it is. I don't know what you want to do. He can't hear
So
us.
can we get him on speaker, Mayor? And
He
just
can hear us, we
mute
can't
him?
hear him.
Right.
We can unmute him when he's ready to talk, or,
He is unmuted now.
no, if we just put him on speakerphone on a regular phone.
Bring my earpod case, maybe if I put it in there.
Give other members of the public in the Zoom.
We're not going to be able to hear
They
anybody.
won't hear it on Zoom. Will they hear it into the mic, though, if they speak?
We're not going to be able to hear anybody on Zoom talking. That's the
Oh, yeah.
problem.
Everyone else will be able to do that, yeah. They'll have to call in.
One of the speakers doesn't have a light on it. This one does. This is a green light, this is on.
Hey, Tom.
Hi, Paul, I have you on speakerphone. We'll do it this way as we did the last time we had this problem.
Okay.
All right.
So we were in the middle of roll call, so Councilman Utz.
I'm here.
Okay, and Mr. President.
Here,
For the record, Mayor Chow is not in attendance. Mr. President.
thank you. Make sure we have the volume up. Okay. We'll start right off with the committee report before we have any other technical difficulties. Councilman Perry?
Thank you, Mr. President. As you see tonight, on Ordinance 11, amending the fees and the ordinance for the sanitary sewer. Anybody have any questions on that? As far as the seniors, nothing to report. Sewer operation, we're still in the process of the line. Public works, no report. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. So on that ordinance, so did you, were there significant changes or were there?
Yeah, the the estimate that, before we just gave a guesstimate, now the contractor, or there's also another one on here tonight for the, 170 is also the, proceed with the sanitary sewer and stormwater facilities. The private contractor did every year.
Okay.
Now, that contractor will give the quote, the estimate to the city, and to the builder or the resident. That's changed considerably in there. Other stuff to conform with situations like another major development would come into town. It corrects a lot of stuff that we didn't have in place before.
Okay.
And, just for the future of Mary and that, Romney and Mary put a lot of time in on it, and it looks good to me.
Great. Thank you both.
They can
Thank
lead the
you all.
questions you have too.
Councilman Deweese?
Yeah, Frank, have you heard any responses from ACUA about the yard waste pickup?
Yes, I did have a good conversation. I believe it's Mr. Witherspoon, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, and I did talk to him exactly what we were talking about at the last meeting, and he did accommodate, Monday's run was not done, it was picked up Saturday, so he actually got ahead of the game and did some switching around with some employees. I'm not sure how it panned out in the south end, and then Monday's run looked like it was done. It's definitely a manpower situation, but I explained to him the A and B zone should be alternated so that there's parity there, and at least one section, but I can see what he's up against. It's not easy. The commercial recycling, the little companies are not getting it picked up at all. It's going to the residential. When your truck goes by for that residential pickup, they're picking up the businesses. Some of them they have to do because there's so much out there.
Right.
But, until they get back on their feet, I guess that's the way to, a stopgap, but it's not every week, it's now every 2 weeks at the commercial will be at the residential pickup.
Thank you.
Yeah, he tried to accommodate and do what he could, but, they're definitely looking for help if anybody needs a job.
Just,
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilman Utz?
I was unable to attend the last planning board meeting, although there were a few things on the docket. So I can't really report on that. I'll report on that next month. Otherwise, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Councilman Notaro?
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mary for stepping up to the plate and taking up the slack with the code enforcement. Thank you for that, Mary. Also, I'd like to commend the fire department and the volunteers for their quick response on an active fire last week. Also, our surrounding town and their mutual aid, and thank you for that. Congratulations to the volunteer fire department on and the ladies auxiliary on the 5th annual classic car show. That was a huge success. Unfortunately, I was out of town at my son's college, or I would have been there to attend. From EMS, we had 229 calls in September for service, of which 46 calls were to other towns, and we called in 12 times for mutual aid. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I think it sounds like it's smoothing out.
It's smoothing out a little bit, yeah. Yeah, I guess our last month meeting worked. We also have another meeting tomorrow, so we'll get updated on that as well.
Thank you. Councilman Deweese?
I have nothing to.
Councilman Smith?
Mr. President, really the only thing that we have for shared services, we do have a proposal in hand from Pleasantville, the city of Pleasantville, for the open positions for inspections. We had a couple hiccups with framework in place. They submitted a proposal, but there were some minor errors on their part, and we're reviewing that.
Yes, sir.
On that zoning officer, is he directly employed by the city or is he a subcontractor?
In Pleasantville?
Yes.
He's employed by the city.
Okay.
I think they have several there as well.
None, I don't.
Mhm.
I think they had one traditionally looking at. I don't
Mhm.
know if they have, they were looking, as part of our conversations, they were looking to maybe hire another person for their needs, but I don't know if that's, I mean, that's their business. That was just something they were speculating on, that they had one person that we're looking to share.
Mhm.
I just can't believe we can't get somebody in-house, for this job. I mean, it's like a retired police officer or fireman or something, it'd be great for them.
It's,
We,
I know it's been posted a long time, and I know we had some applicants, and I guess it's similar to the positions that can't be filled with the county, or with the Atlantic County,
Yeah, it's common, there's other municipalities that are in that, facing that
Yeah.
same line. DH2, we had conversations with them, and they were looking, so it's not unique for us.
How many applicants do we have?
Qualified? None.
Okay.
And the issue with, particularly with zoning, is that unless you have someone experienced, you have to train them.
Mhm.
I've been training myself for
Mhm.
8 weeks. I rely very heavily on the solicitor. It is not something that you can just come in the door knowing nothing. So at this point, a shared service is a great idea because the person's already trained, or we have someone who's already trained. That's the problem with zoning. Code enforcement's a little easier.
thank you, Mary. I have nothing from the Finance and Collections or the Municipal Alliance. We'll move on to the work session.
Councilwoman Madden.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
How'd I miss you, Barbara? You moved.
that's what it is.
You got closer and I missed you. I apologize.
That's what it is. I really have nothing to report. The library meeting is this Thursday, the 14th, and the Mainland Regional High School Board of Education meeting is Monday, October 18th. So I will have, I'm sure, something to report after those two meetings. And Finance and Collections isn't up due yet,
Thank
the meeting.
you. Okay, on to the work session. The Zion Pump Station?
Yes, my office has received the final plans from Mr. Nasser's office. Everything looks to be in order. The application has been prepared. I received the owner of the property's consent to file the application today. That is part of the application. Tomorrow, we will assemble everything for the board and file it with the planning board secretary. Hopefully, we'll have a hearing in, I would say, November. Mr. Utz, do you have any idea what the agendas are like for October and November for the planning board? You guys didn't know?
Disconnected.
Who else is on planning board?
The mayor.
and Mr. Utz.
That's it, right?
Councilman Utz? You there?
I'm here, can you hear me?
There we go.
Yes. Yeah, there may have been a couple of items pushed from this agenda to the next month, so I don't know what the agenda looks like. It won't for a little while.
Okay, I was just curious.
Thank you. Anybody have any other questions on that?
Well, he's there, could you ask him if the country club's been before the planning board for zoning?
Councilman Utz, do you know if there's been anything from the Atlantic City Country Club before the planning board?
There was certainly nothing on the agenda that was presented for this last meeting, so no, I do not.
If I could, they did go before the board because I just accepted the inspection escrows the other day. I can pull the letter for you if you like after the meeting. It's from the planning board engineer.
Okay, as long as they got approvals, that's fine.
I don't know what the approvals are for, but they got approval for something.
All right. Thank you.
Well, they came before us some time ago for, an upgrade to the lighting and parking area,
Parking,
including
Oh,
some
yeah.
drainage issues, but that was some time ago.
that explains the trees.
Yeah, thank you. The Northfield Avenue And Route 9 drainage.
I reached out to Mr. Khan twice, haven't called me back yet from the DOT. I'll shoot him an email, a copy, Councilman Dewey's on it, maybe we can try to push him further to move with the agreement.
Okay, thank you. We have nothing on that lease agreement at this time. Anything on these sump pumps, are we,
Yeah, I have, my information together, I just gotta get it to Chris.
Okay.
And Mr. Perry, you and I spoke about adding just a, a generic clause to the prohibition section. I think we discussed it at the end of the last meeting. Is there anything new you needed?
There's a couple other things I'd like you to look at.
Okay.
To see if you can put them in there with it.
Very good, okay. I would imagine if Mr. Perry and I speak, we can have that on the next agenda or the one after that.
thank you. Stormwater facilities with the county,
No update.
no updates? And any updates on the, on our fire truck?
Nothing other than sometime, I think, in February or November, they'll have some type of,
Okay.
yeah.
And the potential auction for, what is it, block 66, lot 11?
Yeah, I think we're waiting on,
Waiting for the.
yeah,
city
we're waiting
planner?
for the response from the city's planner.
Okay, so.
You just tell me what block and that's in and the lot roughly, where it's at?
It is, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, Harvey and
Harvey and
Dolphin?
Dolphin.
Okay, thank you.
It's a decent-sized lot.
Okay.
Okay, on to the new business. Anything on grants, anything on the horizon? No. Next item is business-friendly sign ordinance. I think we were working on, with Mary's help, since she's been filling in as code enforcement, as we speak about some of the issues. Couple of things we'd like to suggest and try to alleviate some of the difficulties that our businesses have in promoting their business. Some of the sign ordinances seem a little antiquated, so we'd like to discuss, like to present some changes. As long as the signs aren't overbearing and aren't in the right of way, I think we have some latitude, such as the flag signs, if they're not blowing in the street, but if they're up against the building, I think that's something that we can discuss, ask the planning board to take a look at that. And then, other signs, such as lit signs, some businesses, will have a sign, if it's blinking, obviously that's a distraction, and we don't want, and that's not appropriate, but if it's not facing the traffic, that's another thing I think we can look into, just try to help businesses promote, and be successful. Do you have anything to add to that, Mary, since you've been on the front lines of that?
I had one today that, the square footage that's allowed, it's kind of a complicated formula. The length of the building, in this case, it's an 80-foot wide, and the maximum allowable square footage is only 1/2 of a foot, 1/2 of a square foot, based on the length of the building. So an 80-foot building can have a maximum of 40 square feet of signage. Doesn't matter how tall the building is. So it's the charity thrift store. They currently have a sign that's 3 by 12, 36 square feet. They want to painted the word thrift, 3 by 6, so another 18 square feet. And they can't do that because it puts them over the allowable sign presence on an 80-foot long building.
Right.
But if you look around town, look at where Capri Pizza is, I don't know the name of that plaza, but all of those signs seem to take up more than half a square foot based on the length of the building, so,
Yeah,
Some of them could have been approved by variance during the application.
and they could be, but if you look around town, I'm not certain, how it unfolded. I don't know how many people got permission for their signs or just put signs up. I can't speak to that, but, it's not anything I ever looked at before because it was really never in my wheelhouse, and it's,
It's been that way for a long time, and the footage and the freestanding signs, and which square, an engineer can lead to that too, and a planning board engineer, Matt Duran. I've spent 12 years on it, so I know basically where and what and how it's done through site plans and everything. Pre-existing, some of them could have variances, some of them have the opportunity to use 1/3 of your window for advertising, and, basically, the freestanding signs, a lot of them are non-conforming because they're bigger, but some of the ones that were given approval, there's a size, dimension, and a setback, and, the site triangle, everything. Our ordinance is really good. I mean, you just have to, understand why it's like that, because you don't want it to look like certain towns
Yeah.
that have a mishmash of stuff, and it's very comprehensive. I'm surprised that the public hasn't taken advantage of the new A-frame sign. That's been, from what I understand, just hasn't been codified yet, but it's out there. It might not, I tried looking it up on our system, on the internet, but I couldn't find it. But the A-frame sign, from what I understand, with permit process and everything is law. So that's something that you can promote to the public. Somebody asks you, what can I do?
it's just a standing sign that could go on the sidewalk in front of their, in front of the front.
It's all in the ordinance, we passed it, but it's just not codified yet, so you might have to get it from the office to say it. But yeah, that's an option. Somebody can do that tomorrow.
Does it have a different, is it easier to find their name, do you know? or-
it's codified. I can help you find it, Frank.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So technically, that is an option for people that are looking at you, to do something. I mean, I don't have a problem with those little flying little flags, but, the banners and stuff that's supposed to.
Well, that's one of the primary ones that are prohibited, but if they're not, again, if they're not,
I don't want it looking like, North
No.
Nordic Avenue, Atlantic City. I mean,
No.
that's what a lot of this stuff is done. And,
well, and we don't want them all along the side of the road near the right of way.
No, that's all in
Because
the
that's-
ordinance for the A-frames, but I'm talking about the freestanding signs and,
Yeah.
the lighting, LED is a big thing right now. And
Right.
technically how it's put up, and was neon, and now it's LED.
Right, and the timing of the blinking
Yeah.
and such.
Yeah.
And just for the record, the A-frame signs are codified in 215-113M1.
Thanks.
Okay, M1. Well, and as I said, I just like to open the conversation and try to make sure we're being as open-minded about it
A lot
as
of
possible
this is-
without creating.
Sit back, too, a lot of them sit back.
If it sits back off the road, I think that should give us a little more latitude to allow the flag sign in particular, because I know those, again, if they're blown close to the street, they are quite a distraction, and we don't want, you don't want that to drivers, but if it's just no different than if it were painted on the building, then I think it would be permissible, or not a distraction.
So is that something going forward you would want people to email you their suggestions, or how would you like to?
Yeah, please. Feel free, anybody that has any input on that, because we'll try to pull it together. Any suggestions, and then we'll bring it back to the council and see if there's any changes that we feel would make sense. Thank you. The next item is the county court. The date has been extended to join till November 1st, from October 1st. As it stands right now, there's a recent update, and it looks like there are some better budget numbers, more detailed. I got this late, so I'll put it together and share it with all the council so you can see what it is. As it stands right now, based on our last meeting, we were gonna ask for, we talked to the county, to Mr. Ferguson, the option to have a minimum in there for us, or a maximum, if you will, was not well received, and they felt that it would be to the detriment of the overall program, and that other cities would all request the same, and it would probably limit how many participants or affect the ones that are currently already agreeable to going in. As the other item I had suggested was that it be allocated not based on the cases as it is now, but based on the overall cost, which, what that would do is basically, the savings that it generates, that percentage savings would just translate to every city. So every participant would get the same percentage savings, regardless of how many cases you had, because you would do it based on your overall cost. That was flatly rejected by the governance committee. Again, that's how this will be run through a governance committee. I felt that it would be something that would drive more participation, because anybody that wanted to join in would know that if the overall county court system had a savings, that percentage would translate to every city, instead of right now, some cities have no savings, they have increases, and all the way up to a 68% savings. So it varies dramatically. That all said, it is no secret that November 1st is coming up fast, and we don't have a lot of options. So I would say that the only, our option right now is to, whether or not to release the signed document and be officially joined into be officially in the program.
I think that's our best option.
Is there any, and that's why I'm bringing it up, so we have as much participation as possible. Does anybody have any objection to that? Or any other ideas? No, I
need a number.
Well, I'm sorry, the number is, I didn't get to that part. So currently, it has 11 participants. Since our last meeting, Brigantine has joined, Summers Point has joined,
That's good.
Weymouth, and I believe
No, I mean,
Estelle Manor.
The dollar amount.
I-
Okay.
yeah.
You're building up to,
I'm building up to a crescendo. No, the savings would be about 2.8% for Northfield, $4,152 with this last budget that they have. It does look like they did put together the staffing budgets and the scheduling budgets, so even the operating budget. That said,
And security may go down a bit.
That,
Good. They're still
that's
in the
been all
works.
over the place, yeah. It's that would be good if it did.
Mhm.
That's a big ticket item, it's a $500,000 for security for, at this time. But, again, with the overall budget went up, obviously with more towns going in, and now there's a savings for us, so, close to a break even, but at least on the positive side for us. Anyone, again, I'm gonna take a straw poll. Greg, would you
come forward.
move forward?
Not without a dollar amount.
Okay.
Move forward.
Yes?
Move forward.
Okay, Councilman Knotts?
Move forward.
Okay, we'll direct that, that the signed document go forward at this time again, since the mayor has signed it, and, we held it up until we could do more, or get better numbers, but I don't know that I think that the budget, that that they have currently is improved, and hopefully it'll come to fruition. We want this to be successful, whether, for the whole county, and hopefully more participants will join.
Council President, I might suggest that you do a formal motion and a second on that, and then have a regular vote in lieu of the straw poll,
Okay.
just so it's officially on the
Official.
record. Just a motion to release or a motion to either release the mayor's prior signature or have him sign and date it again. I think I would probably prefer he redated the signature so that it's today's date or tomorrow's date.
Okay.
If someone wants to make that motion and second it.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
So the motion is to have it redated, correct?
Redated and.
Redated,
And
full
signed,
vote.
and
signed,
released to the
released.
county.
I apologize. Who was the second, please?
Councilwoman Mann,
Thank you.
roll call?
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Discussion, Mr. President?
Oh, yes, yes.
What was the dollar amount, that we recorded?
On this, current one is 4,152.
Just a savings?
As a savings, our cost would be 143,547. And that would be a savings from what our current 3-year average is, or actually, it's what our last year's cost was. That's contractual with Linwood. That number goes up 2% next year. That'll be our cost,
But that's not in the language of the signatures,
No,
Okay.
Nothing's
Thank you.
changed with the agreement.
no, the agreement
It's
hasn't,
in months.
the agreement has not changed to that,
That's all,
yeah.
thank you.
Again, those are our options at this time.
Is that an empty line in the agreement that we're gonna sign?
I don't recall if it's an empty line or it just doesn't reference the cost.
Doesn't reference it.
I can look at that if you want me to, but.
Well, maybe before we sign it, we can talk to them and see where we're,
I think, yeah, our resolution was that we would, if there were a number acceptable. I don't know that it comes back concrete in the agreement.
It did not.
No,
There were no numbers at all in the agreement. That was the issue.
yeah. Well, our other option is to come up with an alternative court between now and November 1st.
I thought we were gonna have a vote.
So it's
Well.
either, we're in the middle of a vote.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
vote.
I thought we were gonna
The
do a
other,
motion.
as part of this discussion, if we don't move forward, we're limited. We have to put our faith in the county that they'll, I mean, it's a big leap of faith, but it's a 1-year commitment if it's not to our satisfaction. And that gives us a year to start putting something else together. But that's something we can't do in the near term before the end of this year.
So we're gonna vote on
We
that?
are in the middle of the vote. Any other discussion?
Did you say 1 year?
And then we have to give a 6-month,
Yeah, I just want to make sure that's correct real
monkey
quick.
2?
I think it's, I recall 2, but
Yeah,
I'm
At
just,
the most, you're in 2.5, right?
yeah, I think it is gonna be 2
6
years.
months by, about that, right?
It's 2 years and then 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, you are correct. So, again, that said, I feel that they're committed, and I anticipate that they'll
Do
be
right.
able to achieve a savings.
Mhm.
And going forward, we can still try to have that allocation changed once we're back on the governance committee. I don't know how successful we'll be, but those are the options. Any other discussion?
Can we vote?
Well, yes, we are. Making sure, we want to make sure that everybody gets full discussion before we do.
Okay, that was only,
It is a
that's my only
commitment.
discussion.
Okay, we'll continue with the roll call, please.
All right, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. A vote in the affirmative is authorizing the signature page to be redated, signed by the mayor, and released to the county. Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. One item that we do not have on new business that I'd like to address is the property at Dolphin and Shore Avenue. There's been they've asked if they could donate to to the city. Obviously, that would initially take it off of the rolls. I believe the taxes are about $1,600. Mr. Nasser took a look at the size of the property. You believe that with the setbacks, it has a potential that it could fit a small property, possibly the size of the Habitat Humanity homes.
It's a bit short, actually. It's not much
Oh,
short
it's
from
not.
the requirements, yeah. All the variances would be de minimis, but we have to go in front of the zoning board to get approval to allow the construction of a house. It's short on a lot area and I believe lot width,
Okay,
but it's not much, just a little bit, like maybe 5 feet or 4-point-some feet on the lot
Okay.
width. So we're allowed to have a building envelope, I believe 35 by 50, which is a very sizable building envelope. And we can, a small house can be built there and, as you said, stated, for Habitat for Humanity, then it comes back on the roll as an improved property with more taxes.
either through Habitat or through the affordable housing.
Either or, yes.
And then it gets.
Affordable housing will help in our commitment.
It would help
yes,
meet
and for the
part of
code.
our goal there.
Correct.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Has this ever been put up privately for sale, or is it for sale?
There was for sale signs for, I think, about a year.
Would they be willing to sell it, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think they tried. I don't know, did you, I thought it was up for sale. And it didn't.
I've seen signs before,
Yeah, I remember seeing.
Haven't had that
a
discussion.
large-
Alls I know
asking
is they want to
price.
donate it to the city and either the city or the county. So either we have first right of refusal or the county's going to get it. It's going to be off the rolls anyway. So I think it would be best that we take it and we control what happens there.
I just find it strange that somebody wouldn't put it up for sale and as a contingent on planning approval. You know, as many applications are, I just find it odd. This buyer's market property is going and, you know, homes and property is really selling. It just seems odd to me that,
Yeah, it is. It's a good point. As I mean, I know that was, the last time I remember seeing a for sale sign was probably 9 months to 12 months ago.
all right, thank you.
I guess my recommendation, if you do decide to accept it, we could do an agreement of sale, accept it for $1, but subject to your due diligence, to make sure everything's
Mhm.
clear on it.
Yeah, I think that could solve a couple of issues for us. Regardless of the fact that they haven't sold it, if we can, with a minimal amount of a variance, we could have some potential there. I guess what we can do is move forward or not move forward with it, but investigate with either Habitat, if that's something they're willing to look at and possibly move forward and with an affordable home there.
Who is our planner now?
Tiffany Coviello?
And she's also our fellow attorney too? or she-
No, that's Nancy Holm with
Okay.
Serenian Home and somebody else?
Gotcha.
Well, we'll follow up with them and get their feedback as well to further discuss this at another meeting. Let's see. At this time, then, we
Excuse
will
me.
open the
Mr.
meeting. up.
President,
Yes,
I guess I'd like to bring up, I guess it's new business and old business, if I could. Can everybody hear me on this mic? 'Cause Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Everybody in Zoom and everything? I would like to bring up the issue of an ordinance to permit cannabis. I do have a question for Mr. Utz. Can you hear me? Or Mr. Palestina?
I can, Barbara.
Okay. It's been actually 4 weeks since you had proposed that ordinance 7 be tabled, and a committee was formed. I did volunteer for it. However, it's you and Mr. Palestina and Mr. Perry. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
it is.
okay.
And we took a straw poll, and we sort of have an idea of what we want.
I have a
will be
question.
presenting
Can I
this-
finish my question, please?
Sure.
How many meetings has the committee held, and will this be on the agenda for the next meeting? How many meetings have you had so far?
We had talked among ourselves once,
Once.
and then,
In
of
4
course, the
weeks.
last meeting. And I was hoping to present it to the planning board to see if they were open to adding cultivation to the ordinance, but unfortunately was unable to zoom in on that meeting this past Thursday. So it will be at least until the next planning board meeting to know whether they will accept it. And I'd hate to draft an ordinance before we get approval from the planning board and zoning board to add cannabis to
So you
the,
couldn't mention it?
cultivation in
Okay.
the ordinance.
You couldn't bring it
So
up,
that was the holdup, Ms. Madden.
okay, so you couldn't bring it up to the planning board before the last meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you discuss this decision prior to your announcement with anyone? Or was it just something that popped into your head?
What announcement?
The announcement to table ordinance 7, did you discuss it with anyone first? Because I don't know about anybody else, but I was rather surprised to hear you say that. Did you discuss it with anyone?
Table.
Are you
I'm not
addressing me, Ms.
following.
Madden?
I'm referring to your proposal to table ordinance 7 2 meetings ago, a month ago. Did you
Yes.
discuss it with anyone first? Or just brought it
No,
up?
It sort of caught me by surprise, but I thought Council President's logic was sound, and in polling members of council, there seemed to be interest in adding cultivation to the ordinance, and of course, that would require a new ordinance to be drafted, that wouldn't allow 7 to go forward. I mean, we could reintroduce ordinance 7, but why not get it right the first time around?
But actually, if ordinance 7 was introduced, couldn't future ordinances be drafted to amend that?
They could.
So why didn't we do that?
Well, we discussed it at the meeting.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, to an attempt at once and done. Get it through, let's.
Well,
get
aren't we
voting.
kind of running out of time at this point in time, and that it's
No
going to be
one's-
dead in the water?
It's not even approved at the state yet. There's
We have
nobody
a lot of
selling it
time.
yet.
We have a lot of, how much time do we have?
Well, we prohibited it, and we can add it at any time. So had we not
We're not- there's
prohibited
no
it, we
time
would have
limit.
ran out of time.
There's no time limit?
The state still hasn't drafted their final, nobody has a license yet.
Okay. All right,
They haven't taken any license applications yet.
That's right.
thank
We
you.
acted.
Thank you for answering my questions, I
Yeah,
appreciate
mean,
it.
tabling 7 was, we did that by,
Oh, you
yeah.
did. So, Mr.
I
Utz, you
did
did
that to
discuss.
preserve 7. And then
So, Mr.
subsequent to
Utz,
that, we found that there's more things that
Okay.
needed to change other than just waiting to see what the state.
so you discussed it with Mr. Utz before he brought it up, is that what you're saying?
I tabled it. I didn't discuss it with anybody.
Okay.
There was no discussion. I brought it up at this council. I brought it up in open, and I've been 100% transparent since day one on this. I brought it up at council and went out
Well,
of
Mr.
order.
Utz brought it up to table 7 at the
No, he
time
did
of the
not.
vote. Yes, he did, because he
No.
said he was surprised that he was saying it.
No, he was surprised that I did it. He was surprised that I did it because on that particular meeting, we had 7 and 8, the prohibition and the permission on the agenda, 7 being first, if I recall correctly.
Well, that's it, 7 was passed, and then you brought up 8 at the
7
next
was at the
meeting.
final reading, and before we did the vote on that, we went to 8 and prohibited it,
Mhm.
thereby not needing 7, and that's where we are. There's no backroom deals here.
Okay, just, see, I didn't say that, you did.
Well, you did,
Did I?
and I don't know, again, I've been 100% upfront with everyone here.
All right.
And if I may, Ms. Madden, one of the things that we have to decide as a council is how many and what types of cannabis businesses we're going to allow. So before we put ordinance 7 with no number in it, we have to make that decision. So we'd only have to revisit this issue anyway.
Okay,
So that's why I was in favor of tabling ordinance 7 and instead getting, finding out if the interest was there for cultivation and getting it all together in one shot so that businesses could move forward without some blind,
okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Also, Mr. Giordano, who is the head of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, did email everybody, I think it was 3 ordinances from 3 different municipalities to use as a template for
Yep.
you. Do you
Yes,
find them
we can go-
helpful?
Yes,
Good,
yeah, they have some good information in them, absolutely.
that's good to hear.
I have Bayonne and Somerset. I have to gather together the Egg Harbor Township one. I heard,
Mhm.
Councilman Utz did say that that one was very good as well.
Sounds good. Hopefully, we'll hear it on the agenda soon.
Yeah, we're working toward it.
Thank you both.
Okay. Any other new business? Okay. With that, we'll open the meeting to the public. The meeting will now be open to the public for anyone wishing to speak on any subject.
Did you want to do a review first?
Pardon?
Did you want to do a meeting agenda review? The review of the...
Okay, yeah, we'll go, well, that's what's, yeah, it's in order that way. I'm sorry,
It's
public
perfect.
session will begin in a moment. The meeting agenda, please refer to your agendas, council. Reading of the minutes, Councilwoman Madden, Councilman Notaro. Resolutions, Councilman Smith, Councilman DeWeese. Ordinance, Councilman Perry, Councilman DeWeese. Payment of the bills, Councilman DeWeese, Councilwoman Madden. And meeting notices, Councilman Notaro. Okay,
Is everything
now,
on the consent agenda?
that's the resolutions, yes.
Everything's consent?
Everything's on the consent agenda, yes. The meeting will now be open to the public. For anyone wishing to speak on any subject, we ask that you please state your name and address for the record and observe a 5-minute limit per speaker.
Hi, my name's Kim Batesh. I live at 102 South Iroquois, Margate City, and I have a business, Hollywood Smokin', at 801 Tilton Road. About 12 years ago, or in 2012, when I was opening up this business, I didn't quite know about cannabis in terms of its medical uses. So I went out to a university called Oaksterdam University out in Oakland, California. And that's where California law and Amsterdam growing and government policy is married. To make a long story short, I have been volunteering for Oaksterdam on the East Coast as they need it, up and down the coast, also in Jamaica and Spain. New Jersey hasn't been opened up, and therefore I haven't done any. I did do the medical seminars for compassionate care for the first 2 years that they were open. So when they had patients that didn't understand, coming from, I want to say traditional medicine, taking pills 2 times a day, 3 times a day, like certain regimens, using something that you actually smoke to relieve, or in term, mostly palliative. The only thing that's curative, known curative, is ALS. But for palliative purposes, in order for the patient to learn to track it and stuff like that, they would send their patients over every Saturday morning, and I would meet with patients as they need it, or they would just give out my phone number, which I did for 2.5 years. And then it changed hands. So to make a long story short, I'm on the Government and Policy Affairs as a volunteer, because I have a business and that's where I'm paid. And I do volunteer work up and down the coast. I've been on the Cannabis Advisory Board to the City of Atlantic City, and I've helped out with different policies in both Boston, or Massachusetts, and I work with the Cannabis Licensing Authority in terms, for Jamaica, in terms of getting locals the ability to enter the market safely and accurately. What I want to tell you is that I'm a mom first, and that's why I went to school. I'm a education junkie. So if anybody here needs information about policies and stuff like that, I will gladly point you in the right direction. At this moment, I do believe I'm going to apply for a license, so I don't want to steer you towards me, but I can certainly steer you towards information out there. That's what I've done for years. I'm a mom first, as I said. So public safety, my child's safety, is a first concern. And being responsible and sensible and safe access, whether it's to a patient, and now it's, like, we don't say recreation, we say adult use. We don't say marijuana, pot, and weed, it's cannabis. There are just certain things that we should be doing to, and of course, even people who are medical patients need to keep their medicine safe. So I agree with everybody. I even agree with the, I want to say the edibles, when they're marketed towards children, that's just inappropriate. But anyway, reach out to me if you need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Anyone on Zoom?
Nope.
With that, we will close the public session. Do I have a motion to adjourn the work session?
Motion.
3 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, close the public session.
Thank you.
We're live.
What's that?
We're live. This is all being
Yeah,
recorded.
ready? Yep. To read that again?
All right, let's go.
Good evening. This is the regular meeting of Northfield City Council, October 12th of 2021. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9th of this year. As you may know, in late May, Governor Murphy issued Executive Order 242 related to COVID-19, in which eased restrictions on face coverings in indoor public spaces under certain conditions. The order permits employers to impose stricter requirements regarding face coverings in indoor settings, which in the best interest of our employees and visitors, the City of Northfield opted to do in May and continues to do today. Based on CDC guidelines, the City of Northfield continues to require face coverings and social distancing in our indoor public spaces, and visitors are made aware of this decision with signs at the entrances to the building. Due to these requirements, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this evening. This meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting live streamed using Zoom conferencing service and in accordance with the governor's executive orders and the Open Public Meetings Act. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, have been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the meeting notice has been posted at the entrance to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find a meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as instructions on how members of the public could submit questions in advance of tonight's meeting. For those participating via Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web browser participants will not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the City of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. Unfortunately, we're having technical difficulties again this evening, so anyone wishing to comment during the public comment portion of the meeting will need to do so using the Zoom chat and will need to state their name and address for the record. Anyone who submitted a written comment in advance of tonight's meeting, that it would have been read aloud and addressed during the public comment portion of the meeting, but none were addressed this evening. May I have a flag salute by the Mayor, Council President Pro Tem Deweese,
All
please.
rise. Salute. And pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call?
Roll call, Mr. Deweese?
Here.
Mrs. Madden?
Here.
Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Utz?
Here.
And Mr. Policina.
Here.
For the record, Mayor Chow is absent and Councilman Utz is participating by telephone. Mr. President?
Thank you. Approval of the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of September 28th, 2021. They have been posted, distributed to council, and on file in the city clerk's office.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Mayor's not here. City engineers report?
Thank you, Council President. I submitted my report last Friday. There's a couple things I'd like to discuss tonight. The slip lining project is started yesterday, the actual slip lining. We've done the easement between Revere and Oakrest, that's finished. Today, they finished a portion from Davis to the pump station, and we anticipate finishing the project by the 22nd. Next week, I coordinated with the police that we're gonna do night work for Tilton Road. They would anticipate 3 days, 3 nights for that, and then one more night for Zion, for Mill, from Philmar to Zion. That would be a night work, also due to traffic and heavy volume, so it'd be easier for the contractor to do the work. It's moving properly. Everything's no issues. We haven't had any hiccups yet, so everything's working out good. So hopefully nothing will happen. The second thing is the reconstruction of Merritt Drive and portion of Ridgewood. We opened the bids last week. We received 3 bids. The lowest bidder was Landberg, $262,505.08. Unfortunately, his bid was not proper. We require in our bid document that the first item, which is mobilization, cleanup, and restoration, to be maximum 5%. The reason we don't want to have an unbalanced bid, we don't want to overpay for items that we cannot justify. So in our document says it has to be 5%, and he was 11.5% on that. So we have to reject that bid. The second lowest bidder was Arawak. He was at $262,700, so it was only a couple $100 difference. He's the lowest bidder. That bid complies with the 5% requirement. This 5%, we put it in based on recommendation from the state that we have to have balanced bid. So it's not something we chose to put in to disqualify bidders. And even all the bids we have done previously for the state municipal aid, they all complied with the 5%. So my recommendation is to reject the Landberg bid and accept Arawak bids for the project. And that's my report.
Thank you. Do we need action on that now, or is that, no? Okay. Any questions for Mr. Nasir? Okay, we have another public session. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any topic, please state your name and address for the record and observe a 5-minute limit per speaker. Anyone here? Okay.
No one in Zoom.
No one in Zoom? With that, we will close the public session. Resolutions. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature, and having been reviewed by council will be enacted by one motion. Any item may be removed from the from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and if so removed, it will be treated as a separate matter. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certificate of availability of funds. There's an executive session, and that'll be held at the end of the meeting. We will come back into public session to make any comment for the record after that executive session has been concluded. Any vote made on subjects discussed will be made in public. Resolutions?
I'd make a motion to adopt resolutions 169-2021 through 174-2021 by consent agenda.
Second.
Is there any that anyone would like separate from the consent agenda? Any further comments? Okay. Roll call?
All present in favor of voting by consent agenda on resolutions 169 through 174 of 2021.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd make a motion to adopt the consent agenda for resolutions 169-2021 through 174-2021.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Ordinance 11, 2021.
Take the necessary motion, ordinance 11, 2021, introduction.
Second.
Are there any questions from council?
Hold, please. Ordinance 11 of 2021 is an ordinance amending Chapter 288 of the City of Northfield Legislative Code entitled Sewers. This will be read by title only. This is introduction. There will be no public input, and the ordinance will be posted in the Press of Atlantic City on October 16th. It is presently posted in full on the municipal website as well as in the lobby of City Hall. And anyone from the public who would like a copy of the ordinance can obtain one free of charge in the office of the municipal clerk. There will be a second reading. The matter will be considered for final adoption after a public hearing on October 26th of 2021.
Thank you. Any comments? Roll call.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the introduction of ordinance 11 of 2021.
Payment of bills?
I can make a motion for payment of bills of $115,039.30.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for payment of bills.
And meeting notices.
Our next work session will be at 6 PM on October 26th, followed by our regular council meeting.
And
There's another item. General election?
the election.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even see that.
Snuck that one in on you.
That's pretty important. Sorry about that. Our general election will be held between the hours of 6 AM and 8 PM on November 2nd at the Northfield Community School. And sorry about that.
Thank you. We will now go to executive session.
For the members participating by Zoom, once the executive session does begin, the audio will be muted. The recording will stop and the video will be paused. The council will remain in council chambers, but any members of the public who are present here this evening would be asked to excuse themselves for the duration of the closed session. When the closed session has concluded, the recordings will be reactivated, the audio will be turned back on, the public will be welcomed back in, and a statement will be made for the record. With that being said, Resolution 174, which was just adopted as part of the consent agenda, is a resolution providing for an executive session not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12B, and in this case 7 matters covered under the attorney-client privilege. We are required to set forth as much information as possible for the public as to the subject matter to be disclosed, as well as provide for them the amount of time they can expect to elapse before the non-public minutes can be made public, and for that, I will defer to the solicitor for comment.
Thank you. As authorized by Resolution 174-2021, Council for the City of Northfield will enter into an executive session not open to the general public in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. A matter to be discussed is a matter falling within the attorney-client privilege, specifically requests from various municipal departments for payment of premium pay for work performed during the 2020 coronavirus pandemic using American Rescue Plan Act funds. Council will keep minutes of this executive session as required by law, which will be approved by the council and made promptly available for public inspection when required and permitted by law. At this time, it is unknown when that will occur. Council will remain in council chambers for the conduct of the executive session.